Hey folks, Knox with IT Inspired here today. Wanted to talk to you about the biggest topic of all, and that's getting started in IT and systems administration, and more specifically, where to get started with virtualization. What even is virtualization? Why do we even care about it? How do we even get started in IT and systems in general? Let's get started and dive right in. I'm happy that we're talking about this today. This is going to be a fun one. All right, so we've all heard this term, server. What is a server? We got to get more servers. We got to have server. They're so expensive, those servers. I wanted to show you what a server really does, what it even means. When you are on your computer, it's going to be this little square. That is you. You're on this computer right here. This computer is making all sorts of requests. It's plugged into the internet. Maybe it's over Wi-Fi, or maybe it's in a home router or something. But it's sending out all sorts of requests. Help, I need an IP address. Help, I need to know how to get to google.com. Help, I need these files over here. Everything that you can think of that you do on your computer, it needs help from something else. This guy is making requests, and a server serves those requests. This is the universal server symbol is just a rectangle with two lines on it. So what kind of request does it answer, though? Well, that depends. Servers aren't just this universal term that handles all requests and one box can do everything. Servers have different... It's like saying it's a doctor. Well, there's different kinds of doctors, right? Well, there's different kinds of servers, and they serve different roles. Maybe you have like we were talking about with that IP address thing, it needs an IP address. That's going to be your DHCP server. DHCP servers hand out IP addresses. Or maybe your computer needs to know what the IP address of google.com is. We need to resolve the name using DNS, Domain Name System, or Domain Name Service sometimes, to an IP address. Or maybe we just need to get to files. That is just a file share. File share, let's write it down quicker. There we go, file share. Maybe it's that kind of service. All of these things, when you install Windows Server on a box, you go through the process of telling it what kind of server it is using, starting with Windows Server 2012, this app called Server Manager. So I'm on a Windows 10 machine right now, and what I did is I just Googled remote server administration tools for Windows 10. Essentially what this does is it comes with all of the apps so that you can manage your Windows servers all from your Windows 10 machine. And one of those apps is indeed Server Manager. In a production world, this is what you're going to be using. Maybe you work in New York and you are managing servers in Arizona. You're going to be using a tool like this to manage those remote servers. You're going to be administering remote servers using remote server administration tools. This is a free download. As long as you have Windows 10 Pro or Windows 10 Enterprise, not Windows 10 Home, you can download that. And I don't know what version I have. Well, very quickly, we can just go to this PC, Properties. Let me drag this over here. You can see right here under Windows Edition, I have Windows 10 Pro. Now, if you're on Windows 10 as well, one of the first options it's going to ask you right off the bat is what version of Windows 10 you have. This is important. If you are on version 1709, you will have to download the 1709. You're probably on 64-bit, so that's a safe guess. I don't know what version I have. Again, another easy one. We'll just bring up command prompt and type WinVer, and I'll zoom in right here. There we go. Yep. You can see I'm on version 1709. Okay, so I have already downloaded version 1709's RSAT tools here because I have Windows 10 Pro. So I went ahead and downloaded that. One of those apps was Server Manager, and I can look at all of the servers that I've created that we can manage. We're going to go over creating servers and why virtualization matters, but first we wanted to bring you into that remote server role here. If you install Windows Server on a machine, out of the box it does nothing, right? It doesn't have any roles assigned to it. That's where you use this tool to add roles and features. Let's zoom in on this a little bit more. Okay. Oop, let me do a better zoom here. There we go. Now it's going to let me use this. So I'm going to do next. We're going to do a role-based configuration, that's fine. And we're going to pick which server we want to do this on. I'm just going to pick on one of these HyperV hosts and show you what all the options are here. Look at all these. This is where you tell it what kind of server you're going to be. Are you going to be a DHCP server? Are you going to be a DNS server? Are you going to be a web server? Are you going to hold websites where people actually come to your website and look at it? That's what that does. When you check this box, it says, hey, these are the features that are going to be required to turn this into a DHCP server. You just click Add Features. That's the roles. This is important to know the difference between a role and a feature. A role is what role are you going to serve on my network. Let's go to next. These are just additional features just to make Windows Server a little more fine-tuned to your environment. Things like a telnet client or storage replica. That's big in Server 2016. Load balancing, like software load balancing. SNMP if you do monitoring. All of that can be configured here, but again, if you're just getting started, this is stuff you don't need to worry about right off the bat. You're just kind of learning the ropes, and first what we wanted to do, what we're really here today is to talk about virtualization. In Windows Server, well, let's actually start from the very beginning. Virtualization came around in early 2000s, late 90s, and what it did is it took this big expensive piece of software, this server that we have here, and it said, yo, we've got so many resources on this thing, it seems like maybe a security risk to just install Windows Server on it once and then install every single role that we just saw on here on that server. You know, we shouldn't just cram as much info. Do we want the website to be on the same server as our passwords? Probably not. Do we want our email to be on the same server as passwords? Definitely not. That's where most hacks start, is from the email. So what virtualization allowed us to do is we installed an operating system on this server, and then we diced up the hardware. If we had so much RAM and so many processors, like maybe we have 8 cores and 64 gigs of RAM, maybe what I wanted to do is just carve out of that a little sliver, maybe 1 core and 2 gigs of RAM, and create a little server out of that. And then maybe I had a bigger server that I wanted to serve a bigger purpose, and we'll give it 4 cores and 16 gigs of RAM. See, I've still got a ton of RAM left over and plenty of CPU left to keep building out. That's what virtualization allowed us to do. It allows us to take this big, expensive piece of hardware and install multiple operating systems on it. They all think they are a completely separate piece of hardware. They all think they are their own physical They all think they're on their own physical server, even though they're not. They're just a virtual one that is installed on top of our operating system. What Microsoft allows us to do is once we install Windows Server on a physical piece of hardware, we can install this HyperV role on it. HyperV is their virtualization platform that allows you to spin up your own virtual servers, carving out those little pieces of hardware on it so that you can get started with virtualization and then build a little DHCP server and a little DNS server and a little web server. You can get started in IT by getting started in HyperV. That way you can start learning these different roles and these different features without having to build up and tear down a physical server every single time you want to try something new. Now that doesn't mean you're not going to blow up your physical server. It doesn't mean you're not going to mess it up and you're going to have to build it up and tear it down. I know throughout my career I certainly have. But this is where you want to get started if you're getting started in virtualization and systems administration or systems engineering. Even network administration and network engineering can all begin with HyperV. As you can see, this check mark here indicates I've already installed it, and the HyperV application itself does come with those remote server administration tools. I pinned it down here on my little desktop, but of course, if you don't know how to get to it very quickly, it is mgmt.msc. The MSC is Microsoft Configuration Tools. Let's bring it up. And you can see I'm launched into this HyperV Manager. And you can probably hear in the background my servers that are running. This is just my desktop. If I want to actually manage one of my desktops, or one of my servers, I just go connect to server. And I type them in. If I can make some, without making some typos. And look at that, I'm connected to my HyperV host. Hyper-V servers are called hosts, and these virtual machines here, they're called guests. Yep, you can hear them spinning up now because I'm talking to them. And I've got another Hyper-V machine, Hyper-V host 2. And I've got some more servers running over there. You can see I've got Windows updates running, Zabbix monitoring, SQL servers, domain controllers, nano servers that are running file shares, all these different roles, because I took this big physical machine, this one in particular has 12 cores and 64 gigs of RAM, and out of this I took this little bitty sliver, I called this my domain controller, and I go into settings, you can see I gave it one virtual processor and 2 gigs of RAM. I can actually connect to this virtual machine, bringing up the console. I'll just type in my password here and show you that this machine thinks it's its own machine. You can see Server Manager launches by default on those servers too. Let's bring up Task Manager and I can show you. See? It's got that one CPU and only 2 gigs of RAM, just like we talked about. So that's getting started with virtualization. That's what virtualization does, and Microsoft does it in Hyper-V. You can get started with Windows 10 Pro and an evaluation copy of Windows Server 2016. Download those RSAT tools and go ahead and get started with that. Get out there and give it a shot.